Tony Leonardi and the Youngstown State University Jazz Ensemble.
In this interview, I am speaking with saxophonist Glenn Wilson. Glenn has been playing professionally for over 50 years and currently serves as jazz director for Illinois Wesleyan University. He tours regularly throughout the United States, performing in concerts, clinics, and workshops. In addition to his own recordings, Glenn has appeared as a sideman on over 25 albums, including Bruce Hornsby's Harbor Lights, for which Glenn received a gold record for his arranging and playing. Glenn has also performed and or recorded with world-renowned artists such as Bonnie Raitt, Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra Jr., the Lionel Hampton Orchestra, the Buddy Rich Band, and many, many others. Glenn was a member of my father's jazz ensemble at YSU from 1972 through 1976. And during this time, my father's program received national recognition and acclaim when they swept the awards at the Wichita Jazz Festival. It was here that judge and drummer Louis Belson proclaimed that the YSU Jazz Ensemble was, quote, the greatest college band he had ever heard. Here's my interview with Glenn Wilson. Nice to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you, Paula. I'm doing fine in, COVID era.
Yes, it's crazy right now.
Yes, it is. It's beyond crazy. It's unbelievable.
I know. Have you had a chance to play out at all?
No, not really. I'm not interested in playing virtually. Some of my friends are doing it, but I haven't been doing it. All my gigs were canceled when this happened. Like I was talking to you earlier, it takes a while to book stuff, 6 months or a year in advance. And now who knows, even if a year from now, people are going to be able to go to concerts or want to go to concerts. So I wouldn't blame them if they didn't, it's got to be safe. So right. I'm just hanging out, writing music and learning new software and hanging around and enjoying my house in Normal, Illinois.
Very nice. Well, yeah, I mean, this kind of pushed us to do some things that, maybe we never had time to do, and now we have the time, so we have to make the most of it.
Well, of course, in the summer and then fall, I was doing house projects, left and right. So that never ends when you have a house. There's always projects. So, but now it's snowing. Now there's snow on the ground, so it's a little tougher. Yeah.
Right.
I'm teaching my college students through Zoom, teaching jazz. And
How many students do you have?
well, it's normally a regular big band and then a combo, a big band of maybe 15 and then a combo of 5 or 6. But a lot of the kids didn't sign up because they don't need the credit, and they figured I'm just going to take private lessons over Zoom anyway. So, I think I have 10 students this semester,
Okay.
which is plenty
Yeah. Right.
over Zoom. It wouldn't be so bad if they were coming to me and sitting there in the room. That's much more fun. But yeah.
I
And we
know.
just had our big jazz festival this past weekend. We had a 2-day jazz festival. My university, where I'm the jazz director, is 46th annual jazz festival. So we had a virtual festival, and I had friends of mine from all over the country participate. Ken Engelhardt from Youngstown was participating, and I had friends from New York City and from Dallas, Texas, and all over the place. So that was one good thing about Zoom, is we were able to have all those people from all over the country participate on a personal level, talk to the students, et cetera. So that was really fun.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that had to be great. How many people participated?
It's hard to say. People were jumping on and off, and and then I didn't even know, but I still don't understand this. But I got messages on Sunday and Monday that people had joined my meeting on Saturday, and I'm not sure how that happened, but they were saying so and so joined your meeting on Saturday, and it was Monday, and I'm like, okay. So I don't know.
What?
I don't know if they were on there the whole time and I just didn't see them, or what. But I'm sort of new to Zoom, so I don't. They told me you could only have 300 people on the Zoom, and I said I think that'll be fine. We won't be near that. So
Yeah, that would be a lot of people on the screen. I mean, I don't know how you could even keep track at that point, but
and Harold Danko participated, and he's a Youngstown State alum. He was there before Tony.
oh, right.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
He's doing fine. He's retired now from the Eastman School of Music. He's living in Rochester and writing music and still recording. And he said practicing all the stuff he never had time to practice. So
Nice.
yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. It's nice getting old. I got Social Security last year. So now you just sit there and money comes into your bank. It's like, wow, I like this.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I was reviewing the information that you sent me, and I've known you my entire life, and I did not know until you told me that you had my dad as a teacher in Poland before
That's
he
right.
even started at YSU.
That's right. He was hired, I think, in 1971 in Poland, and I was just going into my senior year. So I would have been a fall senior. I graduated in 72, and yeah, we had him for the whole year for jazz band. He did our jazz ensemble, and I think he was doing a lower level elementary school music, right, as his regular gig. But of course, Jim Pignano said, "You got the jazz band." So yeah, I have a picture of the jazz band with Tony and Mike Carden in there in Poland. So so I knew Tony before YSU, and then what happened is in my senior year when he was our jazz band director, I wonder if he was there 2 years. He might have been there 2 years. In my senior year, he needed a Barry player at YSU for the jazz band. So he said, if you want to play Barry, you can play in the jazz band at YSU. And I had played Barry in high school some, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't have a Barry, but YSU had one. So I went up during my senior year and played in the jazz ensemble at YSU with whoever he had that year. I have a picture of that band too. And so by the time I graduated high school and actually came to Dana, I had already known Tony for a year and played in his band at YSU. So yeah, we went way back.
Wow. And at that point, how big was the jazz band? Because I believe the first year was 69 or 70. So I mean, that was right at the beginning. Was it a full size ensemble?
In 71, yeah, it was. It was a regular full big band, and it might have even had a tuba in it. I remember the picture of a tuba player in there, Tom Beasley playing the tuba. And yeah, I think it was a regular sized big band, but it probably had 5 trumpets. Sometimes we had 4, might have 4 or 5, yeah. But it was a regular sized big band by then. But Tony wasn't teaching any jazz improvisation classes or anything like that at that time yet. We just had the big band is all we had. So
Okay.
and then Dave Lalama wrote some octet music, and so we had an octet there at the school that played that music. And that's the one year we all went to Wichita Jazz Festival, and our big band won for best big band, and our octet won for best combo. And yeah, we took all the awards that year. That was kind of funny, but
So that was 1970.
no, that would have been 70, maybe 3 or 4.
Oh, okay. Because I found all these reel-to-reels that he had, and somebody from the Mahoning County Historical Society was kind enough to digitize them for me.
Oh wow.
And one of them, I mean, I have him playing with Nat King Cole on one of them. I mean, there's so many treasures on there, and I believe that one of them is from that Wichita Jazz Festival.
Okay.
I haven't listened to it all the way through yet, but it's something I'd really like to post.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up because I know I might have been a senior even. It might have been 75. Because we were all pretty much seniors, Dave and Donnie Ambrose and Jim Masters and Jim Weidman and Steve Allman, Jim Grinta maybe. Frank Missouri was in there. Yeah. But the year before that, we had gone to the Notre Dame Jazz Festival as a band. And I can't remember if we won that year or not, but I think that was the first time. But of course, Tony was always bringing in fabulous jazz players to play with our band, you know, and to guest with us and to that we were able to meet and be able to play with. And that's where I met Pepper Adams for the first time, the great Barry player. And Tony brought him in to play with that, and Harold and Rufus Reed and Mel Lewis for that concert. And I got to drive Pepper around this, you know, pick him up to the hotel and bring him to the rehearsal. And so I got to know him. So I took him out to dinner at Ambrosia's on Belmont Avenue, and he had the best liver and onions he ever had in his life. He always told me that after that, ever since.
Really?
So, yeah, so we became friends. And when I came to New York, then I would go to his house in Brooklyn and visit with him. And he let me sit in on his gigs sometimes when he had a gig in New York. And I met him at Kilcawley in Youngstown when Tony brought him in. So.
Wow.
And I think that's where Ralph met Thad Jones. Thad Jones came in twice to our school, and that's where Ralph met Thad. And then Ralph ended up playing in Thad's band and still in the band. So. Yeah, it was great. And we have all these pictures of us with these jazz superstars, that we got to perform with and play with. And then, of course, a lot of us went on to move to New York. And so we got to stay in touch with a lot of those people. And of course, our own YSU bandmates. A lot of us were in New York and more in New York. So that was amazing. We had our whole YSU community right there in New York City. And we all played together, and we still play together. I just had Jim Masters as a guest at my jazz festival last year, and Dave D'Angelo before that. And yeah, that's what I told my kids when I was teaching music at the University of Illinois music business class. I said, look around this room, and some of these people you're going to be working with the rest of your life, because the relationships that you form in college stay with you. And if you're lucky enough to be from a school like we were with a teacher like Tony, we all came from the same trunk of the tree. So we have that in common, and we always will. That's what's so cool about it.
Right. The common thread among everybody.
Yeah. And, every time I made a record, I would think of Tony and what was Tony going to like this and what was he going to think of it. And I think I saw him last in May. He passed in July, right?
Yes.
And I saw him in May. I have a picture of him with Ken Engelhardt and I. We went to visit him. And then right when he passed, I had just moved from Richmond, Virginia to Illinois. And my car was being shipped. So I didn't even have a car. So I couldn't come to the funeral service. And I still regret that to this day. But I couldn't do it. I had just moved like the day before. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't at the funeral, but I did manage to see him a few months before. And that's the last chance I had to see him.
Well, that's what counts, is that, you got to see each other and spend time together. So.
Yep. Swap stories. And there's a lot of stories. Of course, Tony's, he's not that much older than me. I think 15 years. He was 15 years older than me. So he wasn't my father. He was my older brother or uncle or whatever you want to call him. But we had a lot of adventures together over the years. And I think I told the one story on my YSU tape about Tony sitting in with the Buddy Rich Band at Idora Park. Buddy was playing at Idora Park. Ralph was in the band. Dave was in the band. I was in the band, and we needed a bass player. And so we all called Tony. We said, why don't you play with us tonight? And so he did. He played with us at Idora Park with the Buddy Rich Band. And Buddy wanted him to join the band and go with us the next day. But of course, he didn't want to. He had other responsibilities. I'm sure he was teaching. He had a job probably. But yeah, that was a special night too.
Oh, I imagine.
You're too young to remember Idora Park, but it was an amusement park. Do you remember it?
Oh, I do.
Oh.
I have vague memories of it, but yeah.
It was an amusement park with these rickety old rides. There was a giant ballroom there, and bands used to come in all the time. Big bands. They brought bands in. I don't know who booked that place, but they were really pretty hip. And so.
Yeah, how did they get Buddy Rich? And do you know how my dad how did you guys get involved with that?
With Buddy Rich?
Yeah.
Well, I got a call in December of '79 from a friend of mine who was on the band, or I had been recommended by somebody, and they said, do you want to play? And I said, sure. So I went out, and then a couple months later, we needed an alto player. So I recommended Dave D'Angelo, and we got him on the band. And then a few months after that, we needed a tenor player, so we got Ralph on. So that's how all three of us got on there at the same time. But it wasn't really, there was no auditioning. You would just recommend somebody, and if they couldn't play the part, they got fired. And so that's how it was. And so you didn't want to recommend anybody that you didn't think could do the job. Otherwise, it would reflect poorly on you. So people were very, and of course, Buddy had a mercurial temper. And
right.
You never knew when he was going to go off on somebody for some reason that had nothing to do with how they played or whatever. So it was a tightrope in that band, walking a tightrope. But I had all those great experiences with Buddy, and I played with Lionel Hampton's band and traveled all over the world. And I'm Frank Sinatra Jr., and I've done all these shows that I'm able to go in and just sit down and read the show and play the show with Frank Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga or whatever it happens to be. And I learned all that at Youngstown from Tony, you know, how to sit down and read a part and play and swing and not, and sound appropriate for the music you're playing. And not just Tony, but all the other people I played with in Youngstown during that time. So there was a lot of musical activity in Youngstown during the 70s and 60s. And it was really cool to be able to play with your teachers, you know, to do a gig with Tony or to do a gig with Joe Parlink or Pellegrini or one of these guys. You know, that was like really amazing to be as a student, you know, to be able to go play professional gigs with your teachers.
Right.
I'm rambling on. You haven't asked me any questions. I'm just rambling on.
No, you're not. No, you're not. What are some stories that you have about my dad? Whether they're, you know, funny ones or things that have stayed with you over the years that maybe he taught you?
There's a lot of funny ones because Tony had a bit of a temper too, as you know.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff he did, you can't get away with today. You can't throw trash cans at people and stuff like that. I remember one time in particular, we were playing a tune called Fat Mama, and it was in the key of E flat minor. And I had the first solo, and I stood up and I played a D natural, which is the major seventh of E flat minor, not a particularly tonic note in that key. And I played the one note, and Tony stopped and said, "What the F are you playing?" And I was like, I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, like I was going to cry in jazz ensemble. So I was like,
Oh no.
Yeah, that was a traumatic story for me. I can't remember if maybe that was when I was still in high school or I was maybe a freshman in college. I was younger. Maybe it was the year I was still in high school. I don't know. But yeah, I remember that. And one time we were playing a gig at somewhere up in Warren on the Strip. And we were playing this jazz gig and Tony's bass broke. The whole bottom of the string, whatever holds the strings in, blew up. And the whole thing went like that. The bridge was flying in the air. And he couldn't play, of course, anymore after that. And so we were sitting around afterwards and just having a drink or something. He goes, "You know, the last time I played with you, my bass broke." He goes, "I think you might be bad luck for me." He said that was 4 years ago or something like that. He remembered that the last time we played together, his bass also broke. Yeah. But it was cool. He came to our parties at our house. I lived up on Madison Avenue in a house with Dave LaLama and Dave D'Angelo and another Dave Tolich, that played in the band. And we would have recital parties after, you know, at our house, and Tony would always come to the parties. And so that was fun, and to get to hang out with him. I remember going to his apartment over on Shields Road, off of Shields Road. Do you remember that place?
Yes, vaguely.
He had all the jazz records, and we would go there in a group of 2 or 3, and he would start playing records for us, and he'd tell us about it and play the record. And then if we weren't paying attention or we started talking or something, he'd go, "Hey, did you come here to listen to music or talk?" And we go, "Oh, right. We came here to listen to music." And so, you know, it was like, it really instilled in me the fact that this is not a background music. This was an art music to be listened to and studied and appreciated. And I always remembered that, you know, Tony took it seriously because it was serious music, and that, you know, trickled down to all the rest of us that were his students. You know, we don't take music unseriously. Whatever you want to say about Tony, everyone has their techniques, and he wasn't. I don't know if he had an education degree. He must have had an education degree at some point, right? But
Yes.
he grew up as a player in the old school, you know, and so that's what you did. If you didn't like what people are playing, you said, "What are you playing? You know, what are you doing?" And you know, so I went from Tony to Buddy Rich, so it was like the frying pan into the fire. But I was a little prepared for Buddy Rich after having Tony as a director. So my early years in jazz were filled with PTSD. And no, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. So how old were you in 71 then when Tony took the job at Poland?
I was 9 years from being born.
Okay, you weren't even born yet.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember you as a little girl, so it must have been when I came back to do some concerts or something.
Yes. I think the early 80s probably are those are my earliest memories. Hanging out with my dad.
I'll tell you another funny story. We went to the Notre Dame Jazz Festival, which I previously mentioned, and there was a band there that had they all wore these long robes like a monk. And they had jewelry on and all kinds of stuff, and they played, and I was impressed with that. So we had a concert a couple months later at Kilcawley, and I lived up on Madison Avenue at the time. So I had a robe. My mother made me a robe, and she saved all the roast beef bones we had on Sunday dinner for months. And I had this necklace made out of roast beef bones and this robe and sandals, right? So I came down to Kilcawley for the concert, and I walk in, and Tony took one look at me and said, "Go home and change." I said, okay. I had to walk all the way home and change and come back. But
He didn't appreciate it.
did not. I don't know if he remembered the Notre Dame Jazz Festival with that group or not, but no, he didn't appreciate that. But yeah, there's many, many stories about the great Tony Leonardi, but and the people have told me that happened to them about Tony. I'm not going to repeat a secondhand story, but there's a lot of great ones there too. But yeah, without Tony, I never would have become a jazz musician, and I probably wouldn't be playing today. I don't know what I would have become, a band director. Maybe I'd be retired by now, probably. But yeah, it was great. And then Tony came to New York a few times and visited when we were there, and we got to hang out with him and go to some jazz clubs. That was a blast.
What did you learn from him over the years that that maybe still apply to you when you play or when you teach?
Well, again, I learned that jazz is a serious music and it's to be taken seriously. And, it's great to be able to play by ear. That's important. But you have to know what you're doing too, especially if you're going to teach it, obviously. And Tony knew both, but he emphasized the fact that you have to play melodies and songs. Jazz is songs and melodies. And he taught bebop, but he wasn't all hung up on licks, which now that's all we teach. We teach licks to students because there's books this high of licks of every player you've ever heard of that you can buy and listen to and learn. So that stuff was not available in those days. So what we had to do was listen to the records and play along with the records. And when you do that, you get to play with Elvin Jones, and you get to play with all these great players in the rhythm section. And when it's your turn to solo over top of the piano solo or whatever it is, but you get to learn the music from the masters. And that was the thing that Tony showed us by bringing all those guests in, that these are the masters of this music, and what they're playing is nothing they've ever played before, and it's nothing they'll ever play again. What you're hearing tonight is special tonight. And, that's really hard for people to grasp about jazz. That it's just in the air. It's not repeatable. Shouldn't be repeatable. I learned a lot about theory from Tony, about chords and things like that, and writing and arranging. I wish I would have had him longer because, like I said, he started a lot of those classes after I was gone. The harmony classes and arranging classes and things. We kind of cobbled together what we could, and but he taught me a lot about being a professional musician and a person, how to comport yourself on a gig, how to show up on time, for crying out loud. Tony was not one that would stand for people being late or not having their equipment together when it was time to play, or he was a professional, and I appreciated that, and I learned that from him. And I'm the same way now. I have no patience for people who don't take it seriously. And so that teaches you to be a professional, and that you can work if you're a professional. If you're not a professional, the first time you're late or don't show up, as Jim Pugh told me, my friend who played in a million pit bands and Broadway shows, he said, the contractor doesn't know how good you're playing, but the contractor knows you're not in your seat 20 minutes before the thing starts. Right?
Wow.
And there's a lot of stuff you learn as a professional musician that you get one chance to screw up, you know, and people are not going to call you again. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of good players. And so you got to take care of business. And I learned that from Tony too. Yeah, I learned a lot from him.
And which albums were you on? I know you were on Reunion 82, right? You were on
Yeah, and we did a couple of LPs early on. We were on some LPs. Rich Hahn recorded those, the trumpet player who was in the band, and then he went on to have a recording studio, and he live remoted those, a couple of those records. They were LPs before the CD, of course. And yeah, that reunion concert. And then I came back and did a concert with my quintet one time with the band. And I had just released one of my CDs. I can't remember when it was, but Jim Powell on the trumpet and Mark Copeland on the piano and Jay Anderson on the bass and Jeff Hirschfeld on the drums. And we played with our quintet, and then we all played with Tony's band. That was, I think, 1991, maybe. I found the program the other day. So that was exciting. I don't know if they recorded that or not. I also came back one time and did a concert with Harold Danko, Michael Moore on the bass, and Joe LaBarbera on the drums. It was one of the greatest nights I ever had as a player, because those guys are all like, you know, a generation ahead of me, or at least a half a generation on Tony's level, right? So for me, I felt like a little kid in the candy store, which was great. But I don't know if there's ever been a recording of it, and I've been trying to find it for years. So maybe I can get Ken Engelhardt to search the archives. But that was another concert I remember coming back and doing at Youngstown when Tony was there.
or maybe someone who watches this video might be able to reach out and.
There you go. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I found a tape of a recording of Ralph and Dave and I on Buddy's Band, the only one I know of. It was the Jerry Lewis Telethon in 1980 over Labor Day weekend, and it was somebody from Oklahoma was recording it, because all this stuff from Oklahoma was going by on where to donate, you know, Oklahoma City, and so gave $1. We were playing on the thing. But VCRs had just come in at that time. They were brand new. So Buddy had one on the bus, but we hadn't seen one. Nobody had seen one yet. So somebody in Oklahoma had a VCR and recorded that as a way to try out their new VCR. But so you can find this stuff on Facebook. It shows up occasionally here and there.
Yeah.
I was looking for a video of me playing with Lionel Hampton, which I never had, and I found one we played for the Queen of Netherlands one time for their 200th anniversary, and they had a video on the YouTube that I found. And the cool thing was there was a cameraman over to the left by me, and every time they switched to that camera, I was in the full frame. So I was
wow.
I got to be in a lot of the film. But yeah, you never know what's going to show up. If somebody has a recording of that concert with Harold and Michael Moore and Joe LaBarbera. Harold doesn't have it. I already asked him.
Okay.
Why? I don't think Joe would have it. We'll find it someday.
Yeah. Well, if there's any the photos that you were referencing, if there's any way you can send me copies of those, I'd love to have them.
I will.
That would be fabulous, because you know I'm sure there's probably some photos from those times with my father's things, but you know, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, so I'd love to see those.
Yep, I have them on scan, so I can send them to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Going back to the Wichita Jazz Festival, since I don't know too much about it, I just know it was a really big deal. Do you know how many awards you guys won?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, there was probably individual soloist awards and things like that. Well, I know there was, because yeah, I got one. Jim Masters got, well, you know what? I think everybody in our octet got an award for individual soloist. That's what it was, because what happened is they gave us certificates to the Jamie Aebersold Jazz Camp that next summer. And that was down at University of Miami. And it was at the time when Jamie only had 2 camps. He had one in Miami and I think one in Louisville. So yeah, so my teacher was Joe Henderson, for my combo, and Rufus Reed was one of the teachers. And who else? David Baker was there. A whole bunch of people, yeah. And we got to meet all those people through that. So yeah, that was cool. So I think that's what it was. The octet won for best combo, and the big band won for best big band, and then everybody in the octet won a soloist award.
One of the winners of the Big Band Festival, Youngstown State from Youngstown, Ohio. Just a couple of words, if I may, about its conductor, because he typifies what we would call the new breed of music educator in the United States. Tony Leonardi, bass player with Woody Herman and other bands, and what with riding the bus, making those 300-mile jumps for MCA, he decided that teaching looked a lot better, and gathered together some like-minded students and friends in Youngstown. About 7 years ago, we were so successful that the university decided to adopt it as a formal program, and it's evolved now to where they're coming up to a full degree program in jazz within the next year or so. They're teaching large ensemble, small ensemble, the results of which you'll see later on in their combo. They're beginning to teach arranging. In short, this kind of music educator coming out of the professional ranks is something that is more and more common in the colleges of the United States and in many of the high schools. And conversely, the judges for this group, the professionals, are also teaching in the schools. Well, here we start with Little Pixie, Thad Jones chart, Youngstown, Ohio. Let's go.
So, what got you into jazz, or originally, what got you into playing the sax, and what piqued your interest?
Well, actually, my grandfather played the saxophone, and he had an old C melody sax that was from the 30s, and it was green and smelled horrible. And when I started taking music lessons in the 5th grade, I tried out on the clarinet, but I didn't like the clarinet. I wanted to play sax, so we got that old sax of my grandfather's, and Mike Carden was my band director, and so he thought it was a tenor, and I was playing the notes, and he looked at my fingers, and they were all right, but the sound coming out was all wrong. And so he could never figure it out. Well, he figured it out shortly that I had a C melody sax, so I had to play oboe parts. But that's what got me into the sax. And then I got an alto sax. I really wanted to play the saxophone. And because of Jim Fignano there, also at Poland, Jim was a big jazz fan, my high school band director. And of course, Mike was too, Mike Carden. So even before Tony got there, they were playing jazz records for us. And we had a jazz ensemble there at the school. And I played in that. And I just, Jim really loved jazz and took it seriously and instilled in me a love of jazz. And then when Tony came, it just mushroomed from there, So I really wanted to be, well, actually what happened is Jim Fignano was talking to me in my junior year, I think, and he said, or maybe it was my senior year, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, I'm going to go to college and be a chemist. And he said, no, you're not. You're going to music school. And I said, oh, okay. Oh, well, all right. So that's when I started as a senior going up to Dana, and I was taking theory classes and being in Tony's band. When I was a senior in high school at Poland, I didn't have any classes left to take much, so I started going up to Dana and taking classes. So yeah, I got into it early, and of course the jazz ensemble at Youngstown was a great experience. And then I moved to New York and kept playing and doing whatever. So I've just been very fortunate to be able to play music my whole life and be able to play jazz. And you never learn jazz. It's like golf. Every time I think I have it figured out, I realize I don't. And yeah, so it's a challenging music. It's a gift that Tony gave us and Jim gave to me. It's a gift because it's something that always will take you to a place where you don't know what's going to happen. And we don't get into those places too often. Sometimes when we do, it's a dangerous place and we don't want to be there. But jazz is one of the few places in music and art in general where you can go to some place where you don't know what's going to happen and feel safe.
I've never heard it stated that way, and that is really spectacular. That's a phenomenal way to state it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
true.
it's really freeing, and I get to do that, which is fun. I don't have that experience anywhere else in my life as I have when I'm playing jazz with someone. And so that's just a whole different experience. And once you get to a certain level where you're not thinking about what you're playing or how you're playing, then you can just close your mind and open your mind and your ears and listen and react. And that's what's fun about jazz. And that's what Tony taught us too. It's alive in the moment music that's never the same twice.
Right.
I like to say I never played it the same way once.
Oh, that's great. Prior to COVID, what were you doing? What were some of your projects?
Well, I have a nonprofit called Further Jazz Inc., which I started about 5 or 6 years ago. And the reason I did that was so I could apply for grants to put on concerts and produce jazz. And so every year I get these grants from a couple of local organizations around Illinois. And what we do is we do a series of jazz films at our restored Normal Theater here in town. It's an old movie theater from the 30s that they've restored. And so we'll show a jazz film of like the Coltrane film, and then we'll play a concert of Coltrane's music afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we've been doing those for about the last 4 or 5 years. I do 6 shows every year. I get grants to do like 6 concerts. And so we find a jazz movie and then we learn the music, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And then people get to go to a movie theater and watch a jazz movie and then see a live jazz concert too. And so a lot of the people that see us don't come to the jazz clubs or don't really know much about jazz. And so it's a great experience for them to be exposed to jazz. And so I've been doing that for the last number of years, and that's been a blast. And teaching at my school, Illinois Wesleyan, I teach the jazz ensemble and combo. And then we have a big jazz festival every year where we have 25 high school bands come in and over 2 days. And we have clinicians and we have master classes and concerts and things like that. I'm still busy with my group. I play quite a bit, gigs all over the place. Chip Stevens and I just did a record as a duo. Came out in October last year. And so we've been doing a lot of gigs with piano and saxophone. That's been a lot of fun. And I do a lot of college things where I'll go to a school, like just like Tony brought people into us, people bring me into their school, and I go in and I talk to the kids and try to inspire them, play with their band, and work with the students and do workshops or master classes or whatever. I really enjoy that. So yeah, just trying to keep busy playing and teaching. And, you know, like I said, I'm 66 now. I'll be 67 in a few months here. So I'm just
That's
glad.
impossible.
I'm just glad at this point to still be playing and still be able to play and enjoy my music and enjoy music. I hope I can do that until I fall over on the stage.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I am so glad to hear that you're still doing some great stuff. And gosh, I would love to come to one of those shows. I'm sure they're probably not going on now with COVID, but
no, they're not now with COVID. And actually, I have a grant that I have to spend by May, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I have to do it. Yeah, we haven't been able to put them on this year. Although they called me and said, we're doing virtual films. And so if you want to do a concert and just send us the film, we'll put it on after the people watch the film at home, you know, so. But I haven't even been able to really get my group together to do that, feel safe about it, so.
right.
But we'll do it again next year. We'll get them going again, I hope. 2021. Fall of 2021 is what everyone's shooting for. I hope we're all back in business by then. That would be great.
Yes, it would, for sure. Now, with the concert, the tribute concert that I'm trying to organize, would that be something you'd be interested in participating in and
absolutely.
reuniting with everyone?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'll be there. Even if I'm not playing, I'll be there. So I will be there either way. But yeah, I would love to play.
Oh, I would love for you to play.
We'll write some stuff too. If you give us enough time, we'll write some new music.
Oh, right.
Dave Lalama will write something. Mike Camiff would write something. Dave Ravello maybe would write something.
Yes. And I need to reach out to Dave, Ralph, Dave Ravello. I'd like to get them involved in this project as well.
Yeah, well, let me know if you want me to call people.
Yes, for sure.
I can
I
help
do.
you with. I could help you with that if you want me to help you fill up.
Yes. Thank you. I would really appreciate that. Well, so good to catch up with you, Glenn. My gosh, it's been too long.
Nice to talk to you. Thanks for doing this. And
oh yeah.
and I look forward to that concert. Boy, that's going to be great. That'll be great. We'll have to make sure we videotape it too, in addition to recording it, so we can have tapes of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I that's on my list to look into, having a videographer and having it recorded.
You have so many musicians too. We should make it like a 3-hour, 4-hour concert. We'll make it a marathon, or maybe do it on 2 nights, or maybe do it over 2 nights or something.
That's what Bill Bodine's been helping me quite a bit with organizing this, and yeah, he mentioned that possibly having a 2-night.
Yeah, because if everybody's coming in town anyway, then we could, and then the in between days, if it's during the school year, we can go to the school and do workshops with the kids at YSU. You know,
Yes.
work that in too.
Right. So many options. We have to get through the COVID part, and once that once that opens up, then yeah, we can explore these different options and see what would work out best.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. And they were mentioning too, maybe doing the jazz on, depending on how many people are interested in playing, maybe doing it by era, you know, a jazz ensemble for each era, or
Oh, that would be interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, because all the guys in my era are starting to die, so we got to get them in there quick.
No. No, but it would be great just to to have all of these generations together in one place.
Yeah, that's true. That would be fun. Try to split it up about by age a little bit. Yeah.
So, well, gosh, thank you again so much, and take care during this crazy time.
I will. You too. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too, and I'll definitely be in touch. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice to talk to you.
You too. Thanks so much, Glenn.